Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today, the top 10 reasons the British royal family is awesome. Arguments that the monarchy should be abolished have continued in the UK for a really long time, and they don't show any signs of going away. And in today's video, we want to stop those dastardly Republicans with 10 reasons why God should definitely save the Queen. Number 10. Tourism revenue. All told, tourism attractions bring in about £500 million into the UK economy from overseas tourists. To be fair, many of these attractions are physical buildings that presumably wouldn't spontaneously combust if the monarchy was abolished. However, the continuity of the royal family certainly helps keep these buildings relevant. Two significant tourist attractions that weren't made of brick and mortar were Prince William and Kate Middleton's royal wedding, and also the more recent one between Harry and Meghan Markle. Also before that, there was the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, which also got a lot of attention. The former royal wedding brought in about £600 million for the British economy. The Diamond Jubilee was also a massive success for British tourism. The country could have announced the year of free chocolate and sexual favours and brought in less money. More weddings and anniversary celebrations are going to come in time, which means more big bucks are on the horizon. Number 9. They're cost-effective. Alright, so the royals bring in their fair share of cold hard cash, but what good is that if they cost the taxpayers an arm and a leg? Well, this might actually surprise you, but the monarchy is cheap enough to actually turn a profit. The British royal family costs the population about 51p per person per year. The cost fluctuates with the state of the economy, so in tough times the royal budget is reduced. Private funding, ruthless fiscal management, and profits raised by royal projects also ensure that the monarchy stays in the black. So unless the Queen is secretly bathing in unicorn blood, wastefulness is one thing you don't have to worry about. And we know that budget was something keeping you up at night, so you're welcome. Number 8. Entertainment value. In a time when the media spent more time covering the birth of Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's child than it did the Syrian civil war, America understands the entertainment value of celebrities. Well, the royal family are the ultimate celebrities, with scads of reporters dedicated to letting the world know about everything from the latest on Prince George to what Prince Harry thought of his latest bowel movement. And that coverage isn't limited to Britain. In America, the royals receive more coverage than climate change, which is a bit ironic considering that climate change is one of Prince Charles's pet causes. But the point, aside from the fact that we may all be very dumb, is that the world loves to hear about the royal family. We'll eat up everything from scandals like Harry dressing as a Nazi for Halloween to Prince Charles doing the weather report. If you need further proof of their popularity, pay attention to how the family is received by the public while on tour. William and Kate's 2011 trip to Canada drew huge crowds and massive amounts of media coverage, and was generally considered to be a roaring success. Now, whether we should be paying so much attention to them is up for debate, but Lord knows if we didn't have them, we'd just dedicate more coverage to Tila Tequila or whoever the hell is popular this minute. We might as well stick with the royals and, keep things classy. Number 7. Extra holidays and parties. Not every discussion of the monarchy has come down to economics and international diplomacy. Some of the benefits of having a royal family are much simpler. Simply, more royal celebrations means more holidays. Whether it's a holiday that's been celebrated for centuries like the Queen or King's birthday, or a one-time bash like a royal wedding, nobody is going to say no to an excuse to sit on the couch and play games all day. Sure, republics have their fair share of holidays too, but the Americans aren't getting any time off to celebrate the President's Silver Jubilee. Some people, probably those who don't get invited to parties, will argue that extra holidays are bad for the economy, but as discussed earlier, the tourism value of the royals more than makes up for that. Also, in addition to that, we'd like to remind these people to perhaps get a life and go have a drink when you get an extra holiday. Seriously, come on guys. Number 6. Diplomatic value. The disadvantage of being a president or a prime minister is that chances are half the country didn't vote for you, and because they didn't vote for you, they hate you with a fiery passion that they'd usually reserve for a violent rapist. If you're a leader of a world power, this problem extends to foreign trips too, because it's hard to improve relations with a country that you've recently ordered the bombing of. That's an issue that the monarchy can sidestep. The royal family is apolitical, so they can represent their country's culture without being a stand-in for controversial policies. It's not a coincidence that the well-traveled royal family represents a nation that time and time again is found to be one of the most well-liked in the world. Sure, being an empire that once dominated the world is handy for spreading cultural influence too, but having a bunch of fancy people who can travel the world to judge crumpet competitions and give tea to orphans definitely helps. So no matter how unpopular British foreign policy may become, the royals can be there to smooth things over. Number 5. Charity work. Sure, the happiness that comes from knowing you have helped improve a stranger's life is nice, but wouldn't a trip to the bar be even nicer? I mean, you're never even going to meet those whiny orphans that you're helping. And it only gets worse when you're not asking people to donate their money, but rather volunteer their time, because who wants to pick up garbage from the beach on a Sunday morning when they instead could be sleeping off a hangover? Their royal family does their best to set a good example, and for some of them, charity is almost a full-time job. It's impossible to determine exactly how much financial benefit their work provides, though one study estimates that the Queen helps bring in £1.4 billion a year, which sure beats the last donation you probably gave to a charity. Regardless of that figure's accuracy, nobody disputes that the world has benefited from the royal family's charitable work. For starters, there are the charities that members of the royal family started, such as Queen Elizabeth's Foundation for Disabled People, which, you guessed it, helps abandoned circus animals find new homes. Royal charities do everything from providing mental health services to military veterans to teaching dance to juvenile criminals, because apparently someone in the royals really wants life to resemble Step Up. Then there are the royal patronages, where a member of the family slaps their stamp of approval on an organization's work, usually while giving money or doing work for them in the process. Royal patronage is highly coveted, and it's seen as a credible public announcement that they're making a difference. It also brings oodles of attention to issues that would otherwise fly under the radar. Princess Diana shed light on AIDS during a time when talk of the disease was still taboo, and also highlighted the underappreciated seriousness of landmines. When a royal supports a charity, people take notice, and we could always use more people seeing ways to improve the world. Number 4. Other monarchies are doing well. Any modern debate about monarchies inevitably revolves around the British royal family, much to the chagrin of King Harold V. But Norway, Sweden, Belgium, Denmark, Luxembourg, Spain, the Netherlands, and Japan, among others, all maintain their royal families, and most are immensely popular. And those countries are clearly doing something right, as you'll constantly find them near the top of development indices. The top 4 countries in the IDHI, one of the best methods of judging a country, like a prize pig at the country fair, are all constitutional monarchies, and there are 11 in the top 20. The US, by the way, doesn't check in until number 16, right behind Belgium. While there's obviously much more to making a country tick than to shove somebody onto a throne and hope for the best, we doubt it's a complete coincidence. Maybe it's their slow, steady approach to modernization and social change, unlike those uppity republics and repressive dictatorships. Or maybe people just work really hard when there's a chance a king will come and give them a medal for it. That is something we're just going to have to let historians decide. Number 3. They're popular. Before you run off to the comments section to paste a quote from Wikipedia's list of logical fallacies, we're aware that just because something is popular doesn't mean it's any good. Popular opinion gave us the Nazis, among other many crimes against humanity. Following the mob can really end badly. That being said, popular opinion on the monarchy subscribes to the if it ain't broke, don't fix it philosophy, with polls consistently showing that the majority of the Queen's subjects want the system to stick around. That's not limited to people in Britain. Polls in Canada and New Zealand, among other Commonwealth countries, have found that most people do believe that the monarchy remains relevant. One of the most pro-monarchy countries is actually the United States, where one survey found that 71% of people believe that the monarchy is good for Britain. In fact, 18% of Americans think it would be a good idea for the US to have a royal family of their own. So apparently, there's actually a staunch group of loyalists in America who are still a bit bitter about their revolution. The popularity of the monarchy drifts around based on economic conditions and the current gossip, but the general trend is that most people remain in favor of the royals rather than against them. And since they're a pretty harmless bunch, there's nothing wrong with giving the people what they want. Number 2. The Queen is a badass. When most heads of state inspect the troops, they shake hands and point at stuff. When Queen Elizabeth II inspects the troops, she practices icing haters. I mean, look at this photo we're showing here. Everything about it is wonderful, from the Queen's steely-eyed gaze to the soldier's expression of amusement and pride. This is a monarch ready to kick ass and take names. In an era when even the slightest faux pas by a politician is torn apart on social networks and subject to hours of analysis by the news media, elected officials are rightly terrified by the prospect of embarrassing themselves. The Queen doesn't have to worry about any of that crap. She can go out, do something awesome, look rad as all hell, and make people proud to call her their leader. So whether she's cruising around like she's about to commit a drive-by, or starring in a film with James Bond, we can always count on the Queen to act like a stone-cold boss. And sometimes, that's just what we need. Number 1. National identity. We could argue about this issue all day if we didn't have better things to do, but when it comes down to it, the royals are an integral part of Great Britain's national identity. Britain without the royals would be like France without wine, or Russia without horrific human rights abuses. No wonder the majority of Brits believe they're a key part of what it means to be British. And really, if the royal family went away, what else would we British be famous for? Bad food, bad teeth, the Football League with only 3 good teams? No. The royals give everyone, from the dapperest rich man to the toughest football hooligan, something in common to be proud of. If Britain gets rid of the royal family, who knows what will happen? Maybe America will follow suit and get rid of hot dogs and soft drinks, and then the whole world will just go straight to hell. So I really hope you enjoyed that video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for brand new videos every day of the week. Also, I've got another channel, it's called Today I Found Out, and on that channel we have content very much like this, but we dive into one specific subject in more depth. You can check that out through the icon on the screen now. But if you're looking for something else to watch right now, why not check out another TopTenz video, or indeed a Today I Found Out video over there on the right. And as always, thank you for watching.